Marina Torres stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of her corner office, watching the city lights flicker to life as dusk settled over Chicago. Her reflection in the glass showed a woman in her early 40s, impeccably dressed in a tailored charcoal suit, her dark hair pulled back in a sleek bun. She held a tablet displaying the latest quarterly report for Sabor Auténtico, her rapidly expanding chain of upscale Latin fusion restaurants. The numbers were impressive, as they had been for the past 5 years. Revenue up 22% year over year, customer traffic increased by 15%, and profit margins holding steady at 28%, well above industry average. These were the kind of statistics that made investors smile and industry magazines take notice. In fact, the latest issue of Restaurant Business Monthly sat on her desk, her own image gracing the cover under the headline, Marina Torres, Reinventing Modern Dining. Her office told its own story of success. Awards lined the mahogany shelves. Restaurateur of the Year, Top 40 Under 40, Innovation in Dining Excellence. The wall opposite her desk displayed framed covers of various business magazines where she'd been featured. Each one captured a moment in her meteoric rise from a single family-owned restaurant to a chain of 35 locations across the Midwest. Her phone buzzed with a message from her executive assistant. Board presentation ready for review. Quarter 3 projections exceed expectations. Expansion plans for Denver market finalized. Marina smiled, but something about that smile didn't quite reach her eyes. She walked back to her desk, her heels clicking against the hardwood floors. The sound echoed in the empty office. Most of her corporate staff had left hours ago. She sat down in her ergonomic chair and began scrolling through emails on her dual monitors. A notification popped up from the company's social media monitoring system. Another 5-star review for the flagship location in downtown Chicago. Best upscale Latin cuisine in the city, the reviewer raved. The ambiance is perfect for both business dinners and special occasions. She should have felt satisfied. This was everything she'd worked for since taking over her parents' small restaurant in Pilsen 15 years ago. Her father's recipes, refined and elevated, were now being served to thousands of customers each day. The Torres family name had become synonymous with sophisticated Latin dining. The corporate structure she'd built was running like a well-oiled machine. Weekly reports flowed up from restaurant managers to district supervisors to regional directors, finally reaching her desk in neat, digestible PowerPoint presentations. Every aspect of the operation was measured, analyzed, and optimized. Food costs, labor efficiency, table turnover rates, customer satisfaction scores. Marina opened her calendar app, scanning the week ahead. Board meetings, investor calls, a photo shoot for an upcoming feature in Forbes, and a speech at her alma mater's business school. Her days were packed with high-level strategic discussions and PR opportunities. When was the last time she'd actually cooked in one of her kitchens? When had she last talked to a customer about their experience? She couldn't remember. She noticed a small frame on her desk she hadn't really looked at in months. It showed a younger version of herself standing with her parents outside their original restaurant. All 3 wore chef's coats and bright smiles. The sign behind them read, Torres Family Restaurant, Established. Ayrate torlayrate inbati ainde. Her father's arm was around her shoulders, and her mother held a wooden spoon like a scepter. They looked proud, happy, connected. The memory of those early days washed over her. The warmth of the kitchen on busy nights, the sound of her mother singing while preparing sofrito, the satisfied sighs of regular customers who felt like family. When had that intimacy been lost? At what point had spreadsheets replaced stories? A ping from her computer interrupted her reverie. The automated customer feedback system was displaying its daily summary. The overall satisfaction metrics looked good, 4.2 out of 5 stars across all locations. But as she scrolled through the individual comments, something caught her eye, a pattern she hadn't noticed before, hidden beneath the aggregate scores. The first review that grabbed her attention was from the Newark location. Food was good, but something's missing. It feels corporate, not like the authentic experience I expected. Marina might have dismissed it as one dissatisfied customer, but then she saw another from Minneapolis. Prices keep going up, but the soul of the place is gone. Used to feel special, now it's just another chain. She began diving deeper into the raw feedback data, something she hadn't done personally in years. That was usually handled by the customer experience team, who provided her with cleaned-up summaries and trend analyses. But now, reading comment after comment, she felt a knot forming in her stomach. The servers seemed rushed and unhappy. Had to wait 45 minutes despite having a reservation. Food came out lukewarm and presentation was sloppy. Not what it used to be. The words blurred together as she kept scrolling, her throat tightening. These weren't just isolated incidents. There was a pattern here, an undercurrent of disappointment that somehow hadn't made it into the executive summaries and quarterly reports. Marina opened another browser tab and started searching for employee reviews on job sites. The results made her chest tighten further. Management doesn't listen to staff concerns. Too focused on numbers, not enough on quality. They cut corners to save costs. Corporate doesn't understand what we deal with day to day. She pushed back from her desk, her head spinning. How had she missed this? The official reports showed high employee satisfaction rates, but these anonymous reviews told a different story. It was like discovering a crack in a foundation she thought was solid. That night, sleep eluded her. In her penthouse apartment surrounded by the trappings of success, Marina tossed and turned. Images from the past mixed with present concerns in her mind. Her father teaching her the perfect timing for searing seafood, contrasted with complaints about overcooked fish. Her mother's insistence on greeting every customer personally versus reviews about impersonal service. At 3 a.m., she found herself in her home kitchen, cooking. It was something she did when she needed to think, a habit left over from her early days in the restaurant. As she chopped vegetables with practiced precision, memories flooded back. The way her father would taste every sauce before it left the kitchen. How her mother knew every regular customer's preferences and family stories. Had she sacrificed the soul of her family's legacy on the altar of expansion? The vegetables on her cutting board blurred as tears welled up in her eyes. The corporate reports showed growth, profits, and efficiency, but they couldn't measure the intangible elements that had made the original Torres family restaurant special. Dawn found her still in the kitchen, surrounded by the remnants of her late-night cooking session. Her phone buzzed with early morning emails and meeting reminders, but for the first time in years, she ignored them. Instead, she opened her laptop and began to type. To Board of Directors subject, immediate sabbatical request. I am writing to inform you of my decision to take an immediate 1-month leave of absence. Her hands trembled slightly as she continued typing. What she was about to do went against every principle of corporate leadership she'd embraced over the past decade. It was risky, possibly even reckless, but as she hit send, she felt something she hadn't experienced in years. The excitement of jumping into the unknown, the same feeling she'd had when she first took over her parents' restaurant. Marina Torres, the celebrated CEO and restaurant magnate, was about to disappear. In her place, Mari Garcia, a name borrowed from her grandmother, would be applying for an entry-level position at various Saber Autentico locations. It was time to see the truth behind the numbers, to feel the pulse of what her family's legacy had become. Little did she know, this decision would not only change her perspective on her business, but would fundamentally transform her understanding of success itself. The board's response to Marina's sabbatical request came faster than expected. After a tense emergency meeting, they reluctantly agreed to her month-long absence, though several members expressed serious reservations. Her reputation and track record bought her this chance, but she could read between the lines of their carefully worded email. This decision would be scrutinized heavily upon her return. In her apartment that evening, Marina stood before her full-length mirror, methodically dismantling her CEO persona. The designer suits went into storage. The expensive jewelry, including her signature pearl necklace, a gift from her parents when she took over the family restaurant, was locked away in her safe. Her perfectly maintained manicure was removed and her highlighted hair was dyed back to its natural dark brown. She studied her reflection. Comfortable jeans, a simple black t-shirt, and practical shoes. The transformation was starting, but she knew appearance was just the surface. The real challenge would be suppressing 15 years of executive habits and mannerisms. Her phone buzzed with a text from Angela, her most trusted friend and the only person who knew her real plans. "Your new identity is ready. Documents will arrive tomorrow morning. Are you sure about this?" Marina typed back, "No turning back now." She'd chosen 4 locations for her undercover mission, each representing a different aspect of her restaurant empire. The flagship downtown location, their highest revenue restaurant, a struggling location in a suburban area, their newest restaurant, open just 3 months, the original Torres family restaurant location, now rebranded as Saber Autentico No. 1. Creating her cover story had taken careful planning. Mari Garcia was a 38-year-old former small restaurant owner from Arizona whose business had closed during the pandemic. She had moved to Chicago for a fresh start, living with a cousin. Angela's apartment would serve as her temporary address. Her restaurant experience made her qualified enough to be hired, but not so outstanding as to raise suspicions. That night, Marina practiced her story in front of the mirror, adopting slightly different mannerisms, forcing herself to speak with less authority. She caught herself standing too straight, making too much eye contact, small tells that could give her away. She'd need to be careful. Some of her long-term employees might be working at these locations. She spent hours studying the employee handbook she'd never actually read before, despite having signed off on its latest version. The sheer volume of policies and procedures was overwhelming. How did new employees absorb all this? Some of the requirements seemed unnecessarily complicated, others contradictory. She made notes but stopped herself. Mari Garcia wouldn't be this analytical about an employee handbook. The next morning, she began submitting online applications to her chosen locations. The process was frustrating. The website crashed twice. Several fields had to be filled out multiple times. After 90 minutes, she had only completed 2 applications. Was this what all applicants went through? No wonder their hiring managers complained about application drop-off rates. As she waited for responses, Marina set up her new life. She rented a modest room in a shared apartment, using cash from her emergency fund to avoid any traceable payments. Her new wardrobe came from Target and discount stores. She bought a basic phone with a prepaid plan. Each step took her further from her comfortable executive life and closer to the ground-level reality she needed to understand. The first callback came within hours. The suburban location was desperately short-staffed and wanted her to interview the next day. The flagship location responded that evening, scheduling an interview for later in the week. The other 2 were silent, which was telling in itself. Wasn't there a corporate policy about responding to all applications within 24 hours? That night, alone in her sparsely furnished room, Marina felt the weight of what she was undertaking. She'd built her empire from the ground up, but somewhere along the way, she'd lost touch with its foundation. Tomorrow, she would start rebuilding that connection, one shift at a time. The suburban location of Sabor Autentico sat in a half-empty strip mall, its signature blue and gold signage slightly faded. Marina, now Mari, arrived 15 minutes early for her interview, only to wait 30 minutes in the entrance area because the manager was dealing with a delivery issue. She used the time to observe. The host looked overwhelmed, juggling seating duties with answering phones. A server rushed past with a forced smile, carrying plates that didn't match the presentation standards from the training manual. The interview itself was rushed and superficial. The manager, Sarah, seemed more relieved that Mari had actual restaurant experience than interested in verifying her background. "When can you start?" she asked barely 10 minutes into their conversation. "We're absolutely slammed and down 3 servers." Training was equally rushed. Mari was handed a thick binder of materials to review at home, and scheduled for just 2 shadow shifts before being expected to handle her own section. The contrast with the corporate training program she'd proudly implemented, supposedly requiring 2 weeks of comprehensive preparation, was stark. Her first solo shift started at 11 a.m. on a Tuesday. By 11:30, she was already falling behind. The point-of-sale system, which her tech team had praised as state-of-the-art, was unintuitive and slow. Modified orders required multiple screens and submenus. While she struggled with the system, tickets piled up, and customers grew impatient. "Don't worry about getting everything perfect," advised Lisa, a veteran server who took pity on her. "Half the buttons don't work anyway. Just write it down and enter it when the system stops freezing." This was definitely not the procedure outlined in the training materials. The lunch rush brought more challenges. The kitchen was understaffed, causing long ticket times. Mari found herself repeatedly apologizing to customers, offering the scripted responses from the training manual, which felt hollow and corporate. She watched in dismay as a family of 4 walked out after waiting 45 minutes for their entrees. Between shifts, she discovered the staff break room was a cramped space with a broken chair and a microwave that looked older than the restaurant itself. The employee meal policy, which corporate touted as a benefit, turned out to be a 50% discount on select menu items, many of which were too expensive for staff to buy even at half price. By the end of her first week, Mari had accumulated a notebook full of observations. The streamlined menu designed by corporate was actually causing confusion in the kitchen. Staff turnover was so high that name tags were kept blank to be reused. The mandatory customer satisfaction surveys were being gamed by managers who offered free desserts for positive reviews. Most of the servers had developed their own shortcuts and workarounds for broken or inefficient systems, but she'd also witnessed remarkable dedication. Lisa, despite her cynicism about corporate policies, genuinely cared about her customers' experience. The line cooks performed minor miracles with limited resources. Even Sarah, the overworked manager, stayed late every night to help clean up, despite being salaried with no overtime pay. On Sunday night, soaking her aching feet in her rented room, Marina realized that her restaurants had developed 2 parallel realities: the pristine world of corporate reports and the messy human world of daily operations. The question was, how had these worlds grown so far apart, and more importantly, how could they be brought back together? Little did she know, her next assignment at the flagship location would reveal even more surprising truths about the empire she'd built. The flagship location of Sabor Autentico stood proud in downtown Chicago, its modern architecture and sophisticated ambiance a far cry from the suburban location Mari had just left. The restaurant occupied the ground floor of a gleaming high-rise, floor-to-ceiling windows, offering diners views of the bustling city streets. This was the crown jewel of the chain, the location Marina had personally overseen during its design and opening 3 years ago. Now, as Mari, she entered through the back door, reporting for her first day as a line cook. The kitchen was a stark contrast to the dining room's elegance, stainless steel everywhere, the air thick with steam and the sound of rapid-fire Spanish and English mixing freely in the confined space. "You're the new prep cook?" The executive chef, James Chen, barely looked up from the schedule he was reviewing. His fusion approach to Latin cuisine had earned the restaurant numerous accolades, but the dark circles under his eyes suggested the toll of maintaining those standards. "Yes, chef." Marie adjusted her non-slip shoes, already feeling the heat from the multiple burners and ovens. The kitchen was smaller than she remembered from the architectural plans. Had they really reduced the space this much to add 10 more dining room seats? The morning began with prep work, mountains of it. Corporate's push for fresh daily ingredients meant everything had to be prepared from scratch each morning. A noble goal, but in practice, it meant the prep team arrived at 5 a.m. to begin a grueling 6-hour process before service even started. Mari's knife skills, learned from her father and refined during her early restaurant days, came back quickly, but the sheer volume was overwhelming. The prep list seemed endless. 5 gallons of pico de gallo, 15 pounds of guacamole, 20 pounds of marinated proteins, and countless garnishes. "Corporate keeps adding menu items," explained Miguel, a veteran prep cook, as he showed her the proper dice size for the mango salsa, "but they never increase our prep time or staff. Last month they added 3 new appetizers and a seasonal menu. Same kitchen, same team, more work." The equipment told its own story. The walk-in cooler's door didn't seal properly, leading to fluctuating temperatures that affected food quality. 2 of the 6 burners on the main range worked at less than full power. The food processor, essential for daily prep, made an ominous grinding sound that everyone ignored. "We've submitted maintenance requests," James explained during a rare quiet moment. "But corporate has a cost control initiative right now. Unless something completely breaks down, we have to make do." During service, Mari witnessed both the best and worst of kitchen dynamics. The line cooks moved like dancers in a choreographed performance, calling out orders and timing dishes with practiced precision. But the sophisticated point-of-sale system, which was supposed to streamline operations, frequently lagged or crashed, forcing them to rely on handwritten tickets during peak times. The most revealing moment came during a surprise visit from a regional manager. The kitchen transformed instantly. Covers were placed on prep containers, stations were hastily wiped down, and everyone stood a little straighter. The manager walked through, tablet in hand, checking boxes on a digital inspection form without actually examining anything closely. "He used to be a chef," James said after the manager left. "Now he just looks at numbers on a screen. Last month he told me our prep costs were too high because we were using fresh herbs instead of dried ones. He forgot that the restaurant's whole concept is built on fresh ingredients." By week's end, Mari's hands bore small burns and cuts, badges of honor in any professional kitchen. But her mind was even more marked by what she'd observed. The kitchen staff's dedication to quality despite inadequate resources, the growing gap between corporate policies and practical realities, and the slow erosion of the very standards that had made Sabor Autentico successful in the first place. When Mari signed up for the cleaning staff position at the original Torres location, now Sabor Autentico No. 1, she didn't expect it to be the most enlightening week of her journey. The restaurant occupied the same corner in Pilsen where her parents had started their dream 40 years ago. The original sign still hung inside, preserved as a piece of authentic decor during the corporate rebranding. Her shift started at 11 p.m. after the last customers had left and the kitchen had shut down. The cleaning crew was small, just her, Carlos, the lead dishwasher, and Elena, who handled the dining room. They were the invisible force that transformed the chaos of a busy service into the pristine restaurant that would greet the morning team. Carlos had been with the restaurant for 12 years. He'd been hired by Marina's father before the corporate takeover. "Your father," he told Marie during their break, not knowing who she really was. He understood that a restaurant is like a body. The dining room is the face, the kitchen is the heart, but the cleaning crew, we're the immune system. Without us, everything gets sick. The wisdom in his words struck Marina deeply. She watched him work with methodical precision, not just cleaning, but observing, noting, caring for every aspect of the restaurant. He kept a small notebook in his back pocket, filled with detailed notes about maintenance issues, inventory levels, and operational inefficiencies. "Look here," he showed her one night, pointing to a small crack in the kitchen floor tile. "Water collects there every night. In 6 months, maybe less, this will become a big problem. I've reported it 3 times through the official system. Nothing happens. In the old days, I could just tell Mr. Torres and it would be fixed next day." Elena, who had worked in 5 different Sabor Autentico locations over 8 years, shared her own insights. "Each restaurant used to have its own personality," she said, while showing Mari how to properly clean the custom light fixtures. "Now they want everything exactly the same. Same decor, same music, same everything. But different neighborhoods want different things. The customers in Lincoln Park don't eat the same way as the families here in Pilsen." The late-night hours gave Mari time to really study the restaurant. Hidden behind the corporate paint colors and standardized decor, she could still see traces of her family's original vision. The hand-painted tiles her mother had chosen were now partially covered by corporate artwork. The custom-built service station her father had designed had been replaced with a standard unit that was less functional, but matched the chain's aesthetic. But the most revealing discovery came when Carlos showed her his innovation notebook. 12 years of detailed observations and suggestions, most of which had never made it past the automated suggestion box system. His ideas were brilliant in their simplicity. A modified cleaning schedule that would save water and time, a rearrangement of storage areas to improve efficiency, even a system for tracking waste that could significantly reduce food costs. "Why haven't you shared these ideas before?" Mari asked. knowing full well that the company had an official innovation portal for employee suggestions. Carlos laughed softly. I tried, many times, but the online system wants everything in English, in a specific format, with cost-benefit analyses and implementation timelines. I'm good at seeing how to make things better, but I'm not good at writing corporate proposals. Before, I could just show Mr. Torres, and if an idea was good, we would try it. Now everything needs approval from people who have never worked a night shift. That week changed something fundamental in Marina's understanding of her business. The cleaning crew, often treated as an afterthought in corporate planning, had the deepest insight into the restaurant's daily operations. They saw everything, understood the rhythms and patterns, and carried institutional knowledge that no efficiency consultant could match. As she helped Carlos and Elena restore the restaurant to its overnight perfection, Marina realized that the real crisis wasn't just about operations or standards, it was about voice. The people closest to the work had lost their ability to influence how that work was done. The corporate structures she'd built to standardize and scale the business had also silenced its most valuable sources of wisdom and innovation. This revelation would prove crucial as she prepared for her final week of discovery. But first, she had some late-night calculations to make, ones that had nothing to do with profit margins or expansion plans. Procederé a desarrollar las partes 7 y 8 de la historia, manteniendo la misma profundidad narrativa. The newest Saber Autentico location in Lincoln Park represented everything Marina had aimed for in her expansion plans: sleek design, state-of-the-art equipment, and a prime location near high-end retail. As Mari approached the host stand for her first day as a cashier, she noticed how the restaurant's aesthetic had been perfectly calibrated to appeal to young professionals and affluent families. The position of cashier offered a unique vantage point, a nexus where customers, servers, kitchen staff, and management intersected. The modern point-of-sale system here actually worked, unlike the older locations, but it came with its own set of complications. Every week they push new software updates, explained Jen, the lead cashier training her. New features we didn't ask for, changing the layout we just got used to. Last week, they added a customer loyalty integration that crashes if you don't enter the phone number in exactly the right format. Mari quickly discovered that being a cashier meant being the face of every corporate policy, good or bad. When customers complained about price increases, she had to recite the approved response about market adjustments and maintaining quality standards. When regulars asked why their favorite dishes had been removed from the menu, she had to promote the new standardized offerings that focus groups had approved. The most revealing interactions came from longtime customers who remembered the original Torres family restaurant. It used to be that Mrs. Torres would remember everyone's name and special requests, one elderly gentleman commented while paying his bill. Now they want me to download an app to get the same personal treatment. The tension between efficiency and humanity became clearer with each shift. The new system could process payments faster, but it couldn't handle the nuances of human interaction. When a family wanted to split their bill 6 ways but one person wanted to pay cash, the computer required a manager override. When a regular customer tried to use a birthday discount that hadn't been properly loaded into the system, there was no way to override it without calling corporate support. But it was the internal dynamics that proved most enlightening. From her station, Mari could see how information, or lack thereof, flowed through the restaurant. Servers complained about menu changes they learned about from customers. Kitchen staff struggled with inventory systems that didn't reflect reality. Managers spent more time troubleshooting technology than managing people. The breaking point came during a busy Saturday night when the internet went down. The entire operation ground to a halt. Credit card payments couldn't be processed. Orders couldn't be sent to the kitchen. Even the inventory system was inaccessible. The staff scrambled to find old paper order pads and a manual credit card imprinter that nobody knew how to use. In that chaos, Mari watched as younger staff members panicked while veteran employees smoothly transitioned to manual systems. It was a stark illustration of how dependent the operation had become on technology, often at the expense of basic restaurant knowledge. "You know what's funny?" Jen commented during the crisis. "Sales are actually higher tonight. When we can't rely on the computer, we have to talk to each other, talk to the customers. People seem to like that better." Back in her rented room after her final shift, Marina spread out 4 weeks' worth of notes across her bed. The weight of everything she'd learned pressed down on her like a physical force. She'd witnessed firsthand how her drive for expansion and standardization had slowly eroded the very essence of what made her family's restaurant special. The crisis wasn't just operational, it was existential. Every decision she'd made in the name of growth and efficiency had created ripple effects she'd never considered. The standardized menu had improved cost control, but killed creativity and local adaptation. The automated systems had increased processing speed, but reduced human connection. The corporate hierarchy had created clear reporting lines but silenced valuable voices. The focus on metrics had improved tracking but missed measuring what really mattered. She picked up Carlos's innovation notebook, which she'd asked to photograph for a project. His simple, practical suggestions revealed more understanding of restaurant operations than the last 3 consulting firms she'd hired. Yet the systems she'd put in place made it nearly impossible for his wisdom to reach decision-makers. Marina opened her laptop and pulled up the company's latest investor presentation. The slides showed impressive growth curves, expanding market presence, and increasing profit margins. But now she could see what those numbers didn't show. The exhausted staff working double shifts because hiring budgets were too tight. The frustrated customers longing for the personal touch that had been systematized away. The broken equipment held together with makeshift repairs because maintenance requests got lost in the system. The wealth of employee knowledge and creativity being wasted because it didn't fit the approved formats. The truth she had to face was that she'd built a company that looked successful on paper, but was slowly losing its soul. The efficiency she'd pursued had come at the cost of the humanity that had made her family's restaurant successful in the first place. Her phone buzzed. A message from Angela. Board meeting scheduled for Monday. They're expecting your return and full report. What are you going to tell them? Marina stared at the message for a long time. The board would want to hear about optimization opportunities, cost-saving measures, and strategic alignments. How could she explain that what the company needed was almost the opposite of everything they'd been doing? She thought about her father's approach to running the restaurant. He'd never talked about market share or brand consistency. Instead, he focused on 3 simple questions. Are our customers leaving happy? Are our employees proud of their work? Are we cooking food we believe in? Somewhere in the pursuit of scale, these fundamental questions had been lost, replaced by metrics that were easier to measure but meant less. Opening her notes app, Marina began typing. Not a board presentation, but a manifesto of sorts. The words flowed as she outlined a radical reimagining of how Sabor Autentico could operate. Restore autonomy to individual locations while maintaining quality standards. Create direct channels for employee feedback and innovation. Invest in people and equipment before expanding further. Return to a balance between efficiency and humanity. The plan would likely face significant resistance. It would mean slower growth, at least initially. Some board members might even call for her resignation. But as she continued writing into the early hours of the morning, Marina felt more certainty than she had in years. She had built Sabor Autentico into a successful company by corporate standards. Now it was time to rebuild it into something that would have made her parents proud. A collection of restaurants that could grow without losing their heart, that could be efficient without sacrificing their soul. The sun was rising as she finally went to bed, her mind already turning to the challenges ahead. The hardest part wouldn't be convincing the board or implementing new systems. The hardest part would be leading the company through a transformation that began with her own transformation as a leader. The boardroom at Sabor Autentico's corporate headquarters fell silent as Marina concluded her presentation. Gone was her usual polished corporate attire, replaced by a simple chef's coat, the same style her father had worn. The transformation wasn't just symbolic, it represented everything she was about to propose. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, standing beside the final slide of her presentation, "what I've shared today isn't just a set of observations, it's a wake-up call. We've built a successful company by traditional metrics, but we're losing the very essence that made us successful in the first place." The board members exchanged glances. Marina had just spent 2 hours detailing her undercover journey, sharing stories, photographs, and data that painted a picture very different from their quarterly reports. Now came the hard part: her proposed transformation plan. "I'm not asking for minor adjustments," she continued, her voice firm. "I'm proposing a fundamental reimagining of how we operate. I call it the Roots to Growth initiative." She clicked to the next slide, revealing the 4 pillars of her plan. 1. Local autonomy restoration. Return menu flexibility to individual locations, 70% standard menu, 30% local specialties. Empower local managers to adapt to their community's needs. Create direct feedback channels between locations and corporate. Implement a test kitchen program for new dishes and concepts. 2. Employee empowerment program. Launch the Innovation from Anywhere platform, inspired by Carlos's notebook. Create cross-role development opportunities. Establish a mentorship program pairing veteran staff with new employees. Implement a profit-sharing system that rewards long-term commitment. 3. Technology humanization. Redesign systems to support human interaction rather than replace it. Create hybrid solutions that combine efficiency with personal touch. Invest in equipment maintenance and upgrades. Develop backup systems that don't paralyze operations when technology fails. 4. Cultural heritage integration. Restore elements of local character to each location. Create a heritage council, including original employees and community members. Document and share the stories of longtime employees and customers. Return to cooking methods and recipes that honor our roots while embracing innovation. The financial projections she presented next showed something the board wasn't used to seeing: a temporary decrease in profit margins. "Yes, these changes will cost us in the short term," Marina acknowledged. "But look at the long-term projections based on improved employee retention, customer loyalty, and operational resilience." The debate that followed was intense. Some board members argued that the company couldn't afford to sacrifice efficiency for sentiment. Others worried about losing the standardization that had made expansion possible. But Marina had come prepared with data from her month-long investigation, showing how their current approach was actually creating hidden costs and risks. "We're not choosing between profit and purpose," she argued. "We're recognizing that our purpose is our path to sustainable profit. Every veteran employee like Carlos who leaves takes with them years of irreplaceable knowledge. Every customer who misses the personal touch of our original restaurant represents dozens of potential customers we'll never reach." The turning point came when she shared videos of interviews with longtime customers, employees, and even some of the original staff from her parents' restaurant. Their stories, their loyalty, and their hope for the future of Sabor Autentico painted a powerful picture of what was at stake. After 4 hours of discussion, the board approved the transformation plan with one condition: it would be piloted in 5 locations before being rolled out company-wide. Marina agreed, knowing that success in these pilot locations would make the broader transformation inevitable. The first month of the transformation pilot program brought both challenges and unexpected breakthroughs. Marina chose 5 diverse locations for the initial implementation: the original Pilsen restaurant, the struggling suburban location, the flagship downtown restaurant, the newest Lincoln Park location, and a mid-sized location in a residential neighborhood. The changes began with the people. Carlos, the insightful dishwasher, was promoted to Operations Innovation Specialist, leading a team that would visit all locations to gather and implement employee suggestions. His first project was creating a simplified system for employees to share ideas in their preferred language and format. In the kitchens, the return to some traditional cooking methods, alongside modern techniques, created initial chaos but soon led to improved food quality and employee satisfaction. Chef James at the flagship location reported that kitchen staff turnover dropped to 0 once cooks were given more creative input into daily specials. The technology humanization project faced resistance until a pilot program at the Lincoln Park location showed that combining automated systems with human oversight actually improved both efficiency and customer satisfaction. The key was using technology to support human interaction rather than replace it. Perhaps the most significant early win came from the local autonomy program. When the Pilsen location reintroduced some of the original Torres family recipes as part of their 30% local menu, sales increased by 25% in the first month. More importantly, longtime customers began returning, bringing their families and sharing stories of the restaurant's early days. Not everything worked smoothly. The suburban location struggled with the transition, revealing that some managers needed additional support to handle their new autonomy. The Heritage Council meetings sometimes became heated as different visions for the restaurant's future clashed, and some corporate staff initially resisted the reduction in standardized reporting. But the signs of positive change were unmistakable. Employee suggestions through the new system exceeded first-month projections by 300%. Customer satisfaction scores showed significant improvement, particularly in authenticity and personal connection metrics. Social media mentions increasingly focused on unique local experiences rather than generic reviews. Several veteran employees who had been planning to leave chose to stay, citing the new direction as their reason. Marina spent this period rotating between locations, not as an undercover employee but as a working CEO. She took regular shifts in different roles, participated in kitchen service, and made herself available to staff at all levels. Her father's old chair was brought out of storage and placed in each location's kitchen, a symbol of the hands-on leadership style she was bringing back. The financial results of the first month were mixed. While some metrics showed improvement, others reflected the costs of transition, but Marina had prepared the board for this, and the positive trends in key long-term indicators kept them supportive. One morning, about 6 weeks into the pilot program, Marina arrived early at the Pilsen location to help with prep work. She found Carlos training a new dishwasher, sharing not just procedures but stories and wisdom about the restaurant. In the kitchen, a young line cook was learning one of her grandmother's recipes from a veteran chef. The dining room buzzed with the energy of a staff meeting, where servers were discussing ideas for improving the guest experience. Looking around, Marina saw something that wouldn't show up in any quarterly report: pride. It showed in how staff carried themselves, in their interactions with customers, in the care they took with every detail of their work. This, she realized, was the true measure of their transformation's success. The road ahead would still hold challenges, but these early changes confirmed what Marina had learned during her undercover journey. The heart of a restaurant's success lies not in its systems or standards, but in its people and their connection to its purpose. 6 months after the pilot program began, the transformation of Sabor Auténtico had progressed far beyond Marina's initial expectations. The changes had taken root in ways that surprised even the most optimistic supporters of the initiative. The cultural shift wasn't just visible in metrics and reports. It could be felt the moment you walked into any of the pilot locations. The most dramatic evolution was in how people worked together. The rigid hierarchies of the past had given way to a more fluid, collaborative environment. In the flagship downtown location, line cooks now regularly presented their ideas for specials directly to the executive chef. At the suburban location, servers had formed a rotating committee to handle scheduling, reducing conflicts and improving coverage during peak hours. Carlos's innovation team had become the heart of the company's evolution. They had developed a simple but effective system for gathering and implementing improvements. Any employee could submit an idea through a user-friendly app, available in multiple languages, and each suggestion would receive a response within 48 hours. More importantly, if an idea was implemented, the employee who suggested it would be involved in the implementation process. The results of this approach were transformative. A prep cook in Lincoln Park developed a new system for reducing food waste that saved thousands of dollars monthly. A host in the suburban location created a community engagement program that dramatically increased local customer loyalty. The cleaning crew at the Pilsen location revolutionized the overnight cleaning process, reducing water usage while improving efficiency. But perhaps the most significant change was in how the restaurants connected with their communities. Each location had developed its own personality while maintaining the core values of the brand. The Pilsen location had become a neighborhood hub, hosting monthly heritage nights, where longtime customers shared stories of the original restaurant. The downtown location balanced its upscale atmosphere with a warm, personal touch that made regular customers feel like family. The technology integration had found its proper place, supporting human interaction rather than replacing it. The new hybrid system allowed for efficiency without sacrificing personal connection. When the computer system went down at the Lincoln Park location during a busy weekend, the staff smoothly transitioned to manual systems without missing a beat. Marina's leadership style had evolved as well. She maintained regular working shifts across different locations, but now these weren't undercover operations. They were opportunities for direct engagement with staff and customers. Her father's chair had become a symbol of this new approach, traveling between locations as a reminder of the company's roots and values. The financial results had stabilized and begun to show impressive growth. While profit margins were slightly lower than during the peak of their efficiency-focused days, customer loyalty, employee retention, and long-term sustainability metrics were all significantly higher. More importantly, the company had built resilience, the ability to adapt and thrive in changing conditions. 1 year after her undercover journey, Marina stood in the kitchen of the original Pilsen location, preparing for a special celebration. The restaurant was closing early for an all-staff gathering, not just from this location, but representatives from every Saber Autentico restaurant. The occasion was the official company-wide rollout of the transformation program, now proven successful in the pilot locations. But it was also something more, a celebration of the journey that had brought them here and the lessons learned along the way. As Marina watched people file in, servers, cooks, managers, cleaning staff, corporate team members, she reflected on the fundamental truths she had discovered during her month of working undercover. 1. The power of perspective. Success looks different from ground level than from a corporate office. Real innovation often comes from those closest to the work. Every role in a restaurant contributes to its success in essential ways, too. The balance of systems. Technology should support human connection, not replace it. Efficiency matters, but not at the cost of humanity. Standardization and local adaptation can coexist. 3. The importance of voice. Every employee has valuable insights to contribute. Communication must flow in all directions. Language and format shouldn't be barriers to good ideas. 4. The role of leadership. True leadership requires regular connection with all levels of operation. Growth should never come at the cost of core values. Success is about more than numbers on a spreadsheet. The gathering that evening was unlike any corporate event Saber Autentico had ever held. Carlos, now Director of Operational Innovation, presented the company-wide rollout of the Employee Suggestion System. A team of veteran servers shared stories about the changes they'd seen over the years. Kitchen staff from different locations exchanged recipes and techniques. The highlight of the evening came when Marina unveiled a new addition to the company's mission statement. Below the existing text about delivering exceptional dining experiences and sustainable growth, she added, while honoring our roots, empowering our people, and serving our communities. But the real magic happened after the formal presentations, as people gathered in small groups around the restaurant. A young server discussed customer service techniques with a veteran host. A corporate analyst learned about kitchen operations from a line cook. A cleaning crew member shared sustainability ideas with a regional manager. This, Marina realized, was the true measure of their transformation. The barriers between roles, locations, and levels had dissolved, replaced by a shared commitment to the restaurant's success and a genuine appreciation for each person's contribution. As the evening wound down, Marina found herself sitting in her father's old chair in the kitchen, watching the interaction between her staff. Someone had brought out old photos of the original restaurant, and stories were flowing freely, stories of the past mixing with visions for the future. A young prep cook approached her, somewhat nervously. "I have an idea," he began, and Marina smiled, gesturing for him to sit down and share his thoughts. This was how it had always been meant to work. Good ideas flowing freely, wisdom passing between generations, every voice contributing to the restaurant's evolution. The lessons of her undercover journey had transformed not just the company, but Marina herself as a leader. She had learned that true success comes not from controlling every detail from above, but from creating an environment where everyone can contribute their best. As she looked around the room that evening, Marina saw not just employees but partners in a shared vision. The numbers would always matter. This was still a business after all. But now they had found a way to measure success that included both profit and purpose, efficiency and humanity, growth and roots. The story of Sabor Autentico's transformation would become a case study in business schools, but its true impact was felt in the daily lives of its employees and customers. They had rediscovered the heart of the restaurant business, that at its core, it's about people coming together to create something meaningful, something that nourishes not just bodies, but souls. Marina's month-long journey as Mari Garcia had started as an investigation into operational issues. It had ended by revealing a deeper truth, that the most successful businesses are those that never lose sight of their humanity, their purpose, and their connection to the people they serve.